Thanks for joining us on Over My Dead Body, the podcast hosted by Nicola Reeder and Carl Tate that aims to bust those myths about all things funerals and answer the questions you never dared ask. So stick in your earbuds, listen, and then send us your questions for the things we still haven't answered for you. Happy listening. Hey there, and welcome to Series 3, Episode 2 of Over My Dead Body. Thanks for tuning in again this week, and we are going to dive straight into this week's episode. It's a little bit of a longer one, but oh my gosh, it is a story that is so worth hearing from the most wonderful woman who Carl and I had the real honour of supporting just a few weeks ago as she navigated the journey of unexpectedly planning her husband's funeral. So we hope you find some inspiration and some hope from this episode, and thank you for listening. So on this week's episode of Over My Dead Body, we are delighted and honoured to be back with one of the amazing families that Carl and I have worked with. And these really are the episodes that mean the most to us, and the ones we get the best and warmest feedback from you, our listeners, about, because you just love hearing that you're not alone when you're going through some of these journeys that we're helping you on. So we are delighted to have the amazing Kay Jones with us this afternoon. So Kay, hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I think that's probably my kind of answer to everybody at the minute. But yeah, I'm doing okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's lovely to be here.
Well, thank you so much for coming on so soon after myself and Carl have worked with you. We are literally just a few weeks on from your amazing husband Dan's funeral service.
Yes,
so
yeah.
We're going to be talking all about that service today and about Dan. I took the service. Carl is here as well, and Carl, you looked after Dan in your care.
Yeah, so I had the honour and the pleasure of looking after Dan while he was in our care. And also yourself, Kay, and your amazing family as well. So Dan's brothers, who we met at our first meeting. So yeah, it's a real privilege to have you on the show. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kay, if we start just to help our listeners get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
You are something of a YouTube star yourself. So tell us a little bit about what you and Dan did and what you built as a business.
Okay, well, I think star is a bit of an exaggeration. But yeah, Dan and I started a YouTube channel 12 years ago now. It's called The Bakery Bears. And that actually was started as a result of Dan having cancer the first time, which was back in 2014. He was diagnosed with testicular cancer. He had surgery and chemo and, at that point was okay. But as a result of that, we decided that we just wanted to spend more time together. We were running a different business at the time, and because of Dan going through chemo, he couldn't, we just couldn't carry on with that business because he was out on the road a lot. So we decided to just try something new and to just give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? We've just been saying that, haven't we? So we stuck on the camera and we recorded a YouTube video and put it out. And as they say, the rest is history, really. But the YouTube channel is based around what was a hobby of mine, and that's knitting. I designed a little bear for my daughter, or our daughter. She was only 2 or 3 at the time. And I wrote a pattern for it. And I thought, well, I'm just going to try and publish this pattern and see what happens. So at the same time I published the pattern, we decided to record a YouTube video and put it out, and everybody seemed to really love it. And we did think it was just going to be one video. It's a terrible one if you go back and look at it. It's not very good. But it just sort of went on from there, really. And it got to a point where we had to make a decision on, because you don't really get any money for having a YouTube channel unless you're one of these superstars with like 1 million subscribers. So we decided, we were about 25 episodes in, I think, and we thought, well, let's give this Patreon thing a go. Didn't really know what it was at the time. I think it was fairly new. We were the first kind of knitting craft people to do it. So we thought, why not give that a go? So we did, and I'm still here today.
Well, and it's worth saying, prior to you starting the videos about knitting, and you'd both been in banking for a while, and then Dan had also done some work in music teaching, technology.
Yes, so my background was banking. I joined a bank at 18, straight from school, went into banking, and that's where I was when I met Dan when I was 31. But his background is entirely different. He comes from a very musical family, very musical theatre. His dad was a musical director in York, quite a famous musical director in York. His two brothers were also very musical. One brother was on the stage in the West End. His other brother is a composer. And Dan himself was a drummer. That was his instrument. And he started playing in orchestra pits when he was kind of, 14, 15. And never stopped drumming, really. That was his passion. And then that led him on to, after he worked in the banks, you've got to have a day job, you don't really make enough money working in orchestra pits of an evening. So his day job was working in the bank where I met him. But then following on from that, he got the opportunity to go back into teaching music. So he started to work for a music service up in the northeast of England. And from there, that's when we then set up our own kind of music-related education business. And that's what we were doing when he was diagnosed with cancer the first time. Yeah. So very musical. His whole family is really, really musical in lots of different ways. But yeah, very Jay's very flamboyant, isn't he?
There's a big eclectic mix there, isn't there, of everybody? Yeah.
Very big eclectic mix, but so much talent as well.
Yeah.
Huge talent across the whole family, I would say.
And that creativity that Dan had brought into your business, and the YouTube channel, the subscriptions that you were doing, kind of involved knitting, baking, but Dan was also churches, monastery, historical things. He did a lot around that.
Yeah, well, Dan loved history. That was his other big passion. Absolutely loved history. And so he decided to start sort of within our YouTube channel. He'd have special series running. So he did a series on monasteries, on Hadrian's Wall. Walked all along Hadrian's Wall and filmed that. Churches, cathedrals, Holy Island, but
he certainly liked to get out and about, didn't he?
He did like to get out and about, and he did it all himself. Everybody used to say, "Oh, you must have a crew of camera people with you," and I don't think anybody ever really believed it when he said, "No, it's just me and the cameras," and he would go out and just do the whole thing himself. But he absolutely loved it, and then he'd edit it all together. Include it in the video show. So we had knitting, we had baking, we had history, we had yarn dyeing, because I dyed yarn on the show as well. Very eclectic sort of lifestyle mix, I would say. Yeah.
But it supported the lifestyle that you wanted to live.
Exactly.
You built a business around it. You were able to support the things that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You were 10 years on, maybe more, from that first cancer diagnosis.
Yes.
And then you got the bad news that...
And then, so Dan was diagnosed with an entirely different form of cancer, much more aggressive. This was only in early January of this year he was diagnosed, and then he passed away 17th of February.
So very quick.
Very, very quick. And from... people, this is one of the things people ask me, because we put out a video show the middle of December. That was the last one, and everything, as far as we were concerned, was fine. He had a few little niggly symptoms, but excuse me, he just thought it was a viral thing. So went to the doctors towards the end of December, and it kind of snowballed from there, really. And it turned out to unfortunately be a really aggressive bowel cancer that had already metastasised, and very quick, shockingly quick, really.
And Dan, I know from talking to you, he was very keen at fitness.
Yes.
He was a runner.
Yes.
He ate healthily. He
Yes.
was a big fan of eating shots. They're ticking all of those boxes. That,
you know, when he went through chemo the first time, he made the decision to just stop drinking. We were never big drinkers, but he just said, "Oh, I'm just not going to drink," you know. So we're like, fine, okay. And then as soon as he was able, after the chemo, he started to walk, and then he started to run, and he never stopped running. So he ran 6 days a week, ate healthily, didn't drink, never smoked, did all the things that everybody tells you that you ever should do with your life. And still, you know, frustratingly, it was just one of those things, is what we were told, which is not really the answer that you want to hear. Yeah.
And I think that's the harsh reality sometimes, isn't it? That it isn't what you want to hear.
No.
But you know that's the situation you were in, and
that's the situation we were in.
And was Dan aware how serious his illness was?
Do you know? I don't know. It's really funny. I've thought about this. I'm sure that he did, but it's not something that he ever really consciously spoke to me about, and I never forced him to speak about it, because I think ultimately he knew that he could have spoken to me about anything, so I left it up to him really, as to how much he wanted to say to me. And the thing was, you know, all of the medical professionals were kind of, you know, they never gave us a prognosis in terms of saying it's terminal, really. You know, we never got that. It was always, we're waiting for this, there's another scan, there's the biopsy, then we'll go on to chemo. Well, we never even got into chemo. It never even got, you know, to that point. Certainly because we were just constantly being told that we were waiting for that next thing to happen, it never really entered my head that we were going to go down the path that we ended up going.
There was always something next to bring on.
That's
you know,
it. Yeah, we were. Always,
it wasn't just the end of that. That was it.
No, we were always like, oh, you know, we've got a scan in 2 weeks, we've got a biopsy in 3 weeks. We've got, you know, we were going from one thing to the other. So yeah, we never. I don't think either one of us really. I certainly never thought it was going to end that the way that it did. No. Yeah.
So you have this huge shock that's happened very quickly, and Dan was only 50, so really young. You weren't expecting to be where you were. You lose your husband and you think, what now?
Yeah.
And Carl turns up at your door.
Oh, do you know, Carl was just like this. I can't even tell you. You were just like this little beam of light in the whole situation, because, you know, we came to see you literally the day after, didn't we? Because Dan's two brothers happened to be here that day after, because, you know, Dan passed away in the evening, and his brothers obviously said, right, we're coming up to see you tomorrow. So they landed on my doorstep the following day, and I spoke to you and I said, look, well, his brothers are here, let's just go now, you know. So we did. So it was literally the day after, and as soon as I walked in, I saw Sarah, and I knew her. I just happened to know one of your staff, and I was like, I know you, don't I? And she was the mum from school where my daughter went. And instantly when I walked in, I knew it was the right decision. And I think, you know, the nurse said to me in the hospice the night before, literally like 20 minutes after Dan had passed away, she said, oh, have you thought about a funeral director? And I was like, I've not even thought that I was going to be sat here in a hospice, let alone thought about a funeral director. So I'm like, well, I don't know. And I knew your business because, you know, I'd seen it driving past for the last 20 years. So I said, oh, well, let's go for you. So yeah, it was just the next day when we went to see you, and we sat down in that lovely room. It is a lovely room.
It is,
got there.
A
lovely lady made us tea. I was like, oh, this is nice. And we sat down, and you know, you had such a sort of calming, soothing nature about you that, and you know, I don't know what I must have come across like, but I just felt like I had no clue about any of it, because although I'd been to funerals, I've never been involved in arranging a funeral. I had absolutely no idea, and my brain's like exploding, thinking, how on earth am I going to do all of this stuff? And Carl was just like, it's all right, don't worry. I will, I'm just here to guide you and what have you. And so then we just like blurted out all of this stuff.
Yes, well, I mean, I must say, and I did tell Nicola this, when we first met and we went through a few things, one of the very first things as we were talking about the service, you said, yeah, it's going to be quite a small funeral. It's going to be, short, dignified, and we're just going to have a little celebration of Dan's life.
Yeah.
I thought, right, okay, that's fine. We sat for well over an hour.
We did,
and spoke about absolutely everything. By the end of our first meeting, we had one of his brothers composing, the other was singing. We were looking. We weren't going to live stream it, but we wanted a slideshow. The orders of service weren't going to be your standard orders of service. They were going to be music sheets printed, and it was like, yeah, this is sort of evolved. But again, not knowing what you wanted.
Yeah.
Conversations that we have, as we do with a lot of families, is we just give you all of the options, and from there it's sort of organically just you come to a point where actually we now know what we want, and I think that's. Yeah. We didn't decide pretty much anything. I don't know if you remember. No. There was nothing decided, but we spoke for over an hour on everything.
Yeah, we did. And, you must have been like walked out of that thinking, oh my gosh, how on earth are we going to arrange all this? Because we did, because, Dan's two brothers were throwing stuff in, weren't they? And I think the sort of overarching feeling that I had about the service was that we wanted it to be more of a celebration of his life rather than a funeral.
Absolutely.
And I think we achieved that, absolutely. But because it was more of a celebration, that's when we then wanted to include all of these things that we knew that he would love. So it just kept building and building. Yeah. And I think, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And I'm thinking, can we do all of that? I don't know.
Well, I must say, as a funeral director, when you are, building these services up, and we are very blessed in Darlington with celebrants, so independent celebrants like Nicola and there's a few others. When you're talking to families, you just think, I know exactly who I'm going to call as soon as the family have left. And at that point, I was straight on the phone to Nicola. I was like, right, Nicola, this is where we're at. And I told her, as Nicola said, just say everything that was going on in the service. But then ultimately it's up to Nicola to come in and then pull that together. I just I do bits, but obviously ultimately together we do it. And that's how we end up at services like Dan's.
Yeah, and absolutely you did that. Because, my biggest sort of concern, if you like, about the organisation side of it was the blooming order of service, because I was like, how on earth can we include all of this stuff in the order of service? And I was having to, the technical side of it, I found a bit mind-blowing. Dom was like, oh, put this in the Dropbox, and I'm like, I have no idea how to access a Dropbox. What are you talking about? Dan did all of this. I don't know. So the technical side was a lot, but thankfully you dealt with a lot of Dom sending you bits of music and saying words that I didn't even understand.
Yes. And I think it can be quite overwhelming. So when you start to look at a service Dan's service wasn't complicated. There was just a lot in there.
Yeah.
And I was also conscious of lots of voices and making sure that my first impression of yourself, Kay, was that you were just very gentle, very kind, very much wanted to keep everybody happy. But I didn't want your voice to get lost in that as well. So that constant kind of checking in and just making sure the steering of kind of the services coming together. This is what maybe his brothers are thinking or what somebody else is thinking. Are you comfortable with that? Does that work? Making sure. So that was kind of one thing I was quite conscious of. And then, yes, when you kind of said, I don't know what file format we need this music in or what. And I was like, don't worry about it. That's my job. And luckily producer Steve is very good at all of that as well. So it's like, Steve, what's this and what do we need to do? Because when it came to it, we had one of Dan's brothers singing live.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, so
incredibly.
Can I just interrupt at this point, because where I stand at the back of the crematorium, I was outside, but I kept the door open so I could just keep an eye, as I usually do. And I genuinely thought, and this hand on heart, that it was just a recording.
Yeah.
When he started singing, I was listening. I think, is this like a backing track, or when's he going to sing? And I looked, and there he was. And I thought, my God! And it's these moments that define some services. It's so special to think. And
it was unbelievable. You know, when I asked him, it was Jay that sang, Jay was in musical theatre, and he was on the West End, and amazing. But I've never actually heard him sing, because when I met Dan, I think by that point Jay had sort of come out of that world, and he was working slightly differently. But the first thing I said to Jay was, would you sing something? And he's like, oh God. Because Dan's genre of music was very eclectic, but he liked things like, I don't know, Tenacious D and quite heavy sort of rock things, whereas Jay comes from musical theatre. So the two, Jay was like, oh, what on earth am I going to sing? But we decided on Frank Sinatra, because Dan loved swing music as well, and he sang Fly Me to the Moon. And my goodness, he belted that out, didn't he?
He did. But originally in the sort of first conversations, we were trying to look at sort of Don't Stop Believing by Journey. It was sort of moving into almost like a musical theatre of such, wasn't it? I think that was banded around as well.
Yeah, because Dan loved Journey, but this was like a fairly recent passion of his with Journey. It's only because of Arnel Pineda.
Very specific.
Very specific. He did not like Steve, whatever his surname was, the previous singer, the lead singer. So it had to be Arnel's version of Don't Stop Believing. Yeah. But I think Jay decided that he thought that was too high for him, maybe, because Arnel's voice is up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we had another conversation and decided on Frank Sinatra, And he did say to me that his son Harry was sort of in the wings. If he lost it and couldn't do it emotionally, his son was going to come in and carry on for him. Yeah, because he's also an actor and a singer.
Oh, but incredible.
But he did it, didn't he?
Yeah,
he absolutely did it. And I saw people tapping their feet along to it and smiling, and
every inch of a performance, like he left that phrase nothing on the pitch.
No, he really. It wasn't just his voice; he was acting it as well, wasn't he? It was just amazing to watch.
And I think we had other bits of content as well. So we had Dan's good friend who delivered a eulogy. He's also in theatre.
He is, Luke, who is Dan's best friend, did the eulogy. And Luke is currently touring the UK in Mamma Mia. He's playing the part that Pierce Brosnan played in the film. So he's also musical theatre, which is where Dan and him met years ago. Dan was playing in the pit and Luke was up on the stage, and that's where they met. So he did an amazing eulogy, didn't he?
And he spoke just about that kind of kindness and support, and just Dan being, everything we heard, everything that anybody said or did was just about what a good bloke Dan was. And we also had his niece who played the cello.
Dom, so his brother Dom's daughter Evie played the cello, and she played a piece from Indiana Jones. Because Dan loved Indiana Jones. So she played that, and that was beautiful as well, wasn't it? And I could see she was playing it, and to the end I could see she was going, she was really emotional. So but she managed to do it as well. It was just beautiful.
But all these parts to this whole service just all fell into place so well.
It did,
We've done lots of other services that have little points but this just all came together with the singing, the whole musical theatre just came through. I thought it was so good.
It was. And you've just picked up the order of service there, but we wanted very specific things in it, and I was like, gosh, can we do all of these things in the order of service? Because I wanted it to be something that people could take away and not just be like, oh, this is, a list of the songs and things like that. I wanted it to be a little memory of Dan, So we also included, we did the hymns as well. We've not mentioned the hymns, have we?
I was just going to say, because I wanted to remind myself of the music. So we talked about the eclectic range of dance music. So I will just go through some of the songs we had. So we had opening music, Ripple, cut song from the Spirited soundtrack. Yeah. So one of Dan's his favourite films.
Yes.
And then we sang All Things Bright and Beautiful.
Yeah.
Because Dan sang it at an audition to get into York Minster Choir.
That's right. He was a chorister at York Minster.
Yeah. So again, that relevance of it to him, but it meant something to him.
Yeah.
Then we had Fly Me to the Moon, which Jay, his brother, did. We had the photographs of Dan's life, the music tribute.
Yeah.
Huey Lewis and the News, Power of Love, because that was his favourite film.
Back to the Future is his favourite film.
Yeah. He saw it 8 times in the cinema.
He did.
When it came out.
Yeah.
And then, although Dan's service was on the 18th of March, we sang the Sussex Carol, which starts on Christmas night or Christmas Day.
We did. And I thought people are going to think we're absolutely bonkers. But the reason that we had that was because Dan sang that live on radio. Would it have been Radio 4, I think?
Maybe, yeah.
In 1987, I was just looking at it there. He did the solo part, and it was on the radio. And his mum recorded it off the radio, so I've got the recording. It's really crackly, and because it's from ages ago. But because he'd sung that and he'd sang it, on the radio, we were like, well, let's do that one.
Let's do it.
But that's explained, you see, in the order of service. I said, this is why we've got to put the backstory in there, because otherwise people will be like, this woman's mental.
Did you see your mouth?
Why are we singing the Christmas Carol?
In March. On a red hot day, as I remember.
And it was tricky to sing, wasn't it?
So high. It was. Thank goodness we had a few singers.
I could hear people singing it, and then all of a sudden they'd lowered their voice down a bit because they couldn't get the height because it was really high. Yeah,
I definitely stepped away from the microphone from the lectern at that point.
Yeah.
We also had a poem called "The Joy of Socks."
We did, and I think it was Jay's wife that found this and sent it to me, and I said, oh gosh, that's perfect, because we were both knitters. I don't think I've said that, but I taught Dan to knit way before we started the YouTube channel, because he had a car accident and he was struggling to relax in the evening. So I cast on a hat for him, showed him how to do a knit stitch, and said, there you go, give that a go. And he took it up and he loved it, and it really helped him relax. And after that he was able to sleep. Yeah. And it went from there, and he was knitting, recently he'd been knitting colourwork jumpers and socks, we both knitted socks. Yeah. So he became a really proficient and brilliant knitter, very technical, very precise. Yeah. But the poem is about someone knitting socks, and I changed, it said she in there, so I changed that to he, and I changed the lady's name that was in there to Dan. And our really, really good friend Sarah read that out, and she almost lost it. God love her, didn't she?
Gorgeous.
I was like, just wanted to go up and give her a hug,
Yeah.
But she absolutely did it. And Sarah was amazing, because Sarah's a palliative care doctor, and she was with me specifically, and then also Dan, obviously, those last few days. And although she wasn't there in a medical capacity, she had all of this knowledge and was really, really helpful. I don't know what I would have done, to be honest, without her there. So she was delighted to read that. So it was lovely.
And I think, although there was so much content in Dan's service, every single thing was relevant, because again, I think we were all conscious of not creating this mishmash of a pantomime that didn't make any sense. So although my job wasn't necessarily writing, not at all writing and reading a eulogy for Dan's service, that wasn't the job you needed me to do.
Yeah.
It was about how do we construct the part, and how do we make it feel like
and connecting all of these things together, which you did brilliantly, I've got to say. And I even asked you for the your sort of script, if you like, afterwards, which we kindly sent to me, because a few people said to me they would love to have that.
Yeah.
My friend Sarah specifically, what you said about Dan right at the end, she really wanted to remember that.
Yeah. And about how you go out and be a bit more Dan in the world, because we wanted it to feel like we ended on video
of Dan being Dan.
I know. I found a video on my phone that I filmed only last year, and we were in the kitchen here, and a BTS song came on because our daughter Bryony loves BTS. Not as much as she used to, but she still does. And so I put this song on, and he started dancing to it, and I filmed him just to send it to Bryony. I just filmed him to send it to her at the time, and I came across it when I was looking for all the photos of him. And I was like, oh gosh, do you know what? We should just put that at the end.
Yeah. Because
it perfectly summed him up, what he did, within that video. And you know what I mean towards the end.
Yeah.
It was just so Dan. And it kind of lifted everything as well, because people were just laughing, seeing it. And I think it's such a heavy thing, isn't it, to have to go through. And any bits of lightness within that reflects the person that Dan was, I think, was just brilliant. So I was just happy that people were looking and smiling and laughing and just remembering him in that way, rather than remembering him, in a sad way. Yeah.
I think the whole service, as you said, you wanted it as a celebration, which it was.
Yeah.
And one thing that struck a chord with me, it caught a lot of people off guard, was the shots of ginger that we had. Now, we've had shots of energy drinks before, and all this.
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels, we've had other things, but the ginger shots was a new one on me as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you brought it into the office and said I had to go in the fridge, a lot of my team in the office was sort of saying, "Are you on a big health kick, or what's this? What are you doing?" And once I'd sort of said what it was for, but when I was pouring the shots, I must admit, I only gave, and you'll notice that people only really had.
You should have given them twice.
Well, there was a lot in, because there was a lot to it. I think, there was a few coughs and sputters, wasn't there?
It was
very funny.
It was really funny, because I'm used to it, because we used to have this ginger shot every day. For the past few years we've done it, so I'm like, neck that, no problem. But I knew that people would be like, oh my god, what have you given me?
What I didn't expect was people coming for seconds.
When we were gathered outside afterwards and we had the bottles, people were saying, oh, there's a bit left there, I'll just finish that off by you.
Well, what Dan liked about it was that it kind of felt a bit like having a shot of whiskey. Do you know what? It gives you that burn.
It was burn. That's all it is. It's a burn.
Yeah, it really was. But it's so good for you, unlike whiskey.
Yeah.
So that was really fun at the end. I think it was. He'd have just so loved that.
I was just glad I didn't have to say too much more after I down my ginger shot. But they were brilliant.
Yeah,
they were absolutely brilliant, and it was just the perfect, because we did it at the committal, which is often the saddest part, the most difficult part of the service, and it just lifted that so much. And then that video of, those last few words of, be a bit more Dan, that video of Dan being himself, and then straight into Don't Stop Believing, the specific version.
Yes, Arnell was there. You'd be thrilled that Arnell was there.
So it just, and the order of service sheet that we referred to earlier on, we'd done a few things around it, like the backwash, that sort of background on the pages was the Don't Stop Believing drum music.
Yes.
So that was kind of, that little bit was in there. We had a page of, I'm just looking at it now, a page of Dan's favourite things.
Oh yes, his favourite things.
Back to the Future.
This is brilliant, because I just listed them all to you, and then I don't know who got all these images.
This was Ben Shutt in Darlington, who's amazing.
So I just listed loads of his favourite things. So movies, so Back to the Future, Spirited, 80 for Brady. There's loads of history books on there. There's drums. There's Tenacious D.
Lego. American football.
Lions we've not even mentioned. So Dan and I are huge fans of the Detroit Lions. If you want to support anyone this year, give them a shout out. And when you nearly killed me at the wedding, at the funeral, because we turned up and then you walked in, and what did you have on?
A Detroit Lions t-shirt.
Detroit Lions t-shirt, and I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that you've done that. And I was kind of kicking myself that I'd not put mine on. I was like, I should have put mine on. Yeah.
And the very back inside page.
Yes.
Your amazing recipe.
Yeah, well, I like to bake, and I would often bake for Dan. And whenever I asked him what he wanted me to make, it was always, just make your fat rascals. They're my favourite. So yeah, Fat Rascals, if you don't know, it's a specific kind of massive, like, rock cake scone type thing that Betty's do. Betty's is a tea room in Harrogate, and where else are they? York, Northallerton, and there's another one as well.
Is it Harlow Car?
There's one at Harlow Car, yeah. And they make these gigantic things called Fat Rascals, and over the years I've just developed my own recipe for them. And I just used to making them all the time. So I said, you know what, I'm going to put that recipe in, because I just had a thought of people taking the service away with them. They could make a Fat Rascal, they could put on one of his favourite films, and just sit down and have a little minute, thinking of him.
I think we need to share this recipe as well. So I think if you're happy to do so, we'll put it on.
Sure.
We'll put it on. We'll share it. So
and we'll put the kind of some of the bits of like his favourite things. Put pictures of those on so people can see.
Yeah. So I was thrilled with the order of service. When it came through, I was like, oh God, what is it going to be like? Is it going to be okay? And I was like, oh, it's brilliant. It's just, it's just perfect. And I asked for way more copies than we actually needed, because I thought I just want a stack of them, because I want to give them to people who weren't able to come.
And it was more, I know we were very keen not to make it absolutely huge. It was actually, in terms of the number of people there, it was quite intimate.
It really was. I think there was only like 45 people or something, and it could have been twice that, 3 times that. I could have invited a lot more people than that, but I knew that Dan would have just wanted the people there that were there.
I think that's right as well. So sometimes with funerals, it's not a case of let's invite the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice just to have a select group of people.
Yeah, and I did kind of say no to a few people, who said, oh, I want to come, kind of thing. And I did say no to a few people, which is hard, because you do kind of just feel like you've got to say yes. But I just kept constantly going back to thinking, would Dan want that person there specifically? And there were certain people that, you know what family dynamics are like and stuff, and I was like, no. So I think it was right, what we did in the end, and it felt like the right number of people. Yeah,
absolutely, and they would have understood the elements that we included in the service and why we got them in the service.
Yeah.
So tell us how you felt. You mentioned early on the first time you sat down with Carl, and he just felt massively overwhelmed. And where do I start? Where do we go from here? So from there to walking out of the crematorium, hearing Don't Stop Believing blasting, having really celebrated Dan.
Yeah.
How different did you feel at the end of that to the start of the whole process?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I had a lot more, I don't know, did I feel calmer? I don't know. Probably. It's funny, a lot of people said to me, you'll feel a sense of relief after the funeral. I don't know that I would say it was relief, but I was kind of glad to be past that point of having to do all of the organising and everything. But also, I felt like I had a bit of a purpose during that time up until the funeral. And then you've done all of those jobs, and because I was doing all of this for Dan, I was happy to do it. And then you get to that point and you're like, right, okay. I remember walking back in the door at about 7 o'clock at night, and I'm like, right, what now? It did feel exactly like that.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled with how it had gone. I couldn't have been happier with how it had gone. Everything was just exactly as we kind of planned it. Because I never had any thoughts. Dan and I never had any conversations about funerals or anything like that. Because who does, really? Especially at the ages we were, it's just not something that's ever on your radar. So I didn't have any kind of knowledge of what he would have wanted in terms of him saying, oh, do that and do that and do that. So I just had to do what I thought he would want. And I mean, looking back on it, and everybody, when we went to the hotel afterwards, everybody was coming up to me, and every single person said to me they'd never been to a service like it. And I was like, gosh, that's just amazing, isn't it, that people think that? Because you sat there as, I sat on the front row, and that in itself is just like, oh God, do I have to sit on the front row? I just want to sit in the back, not be kind of that sort of centre of attention, people looking, oh, how is she all right, that sort of a thing. But yeah, I was just thrilled, just so pleased that people had come away with a kind of positive feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what they would remember, that kind of joyous feeling of, God, that was just an amazing service.
And just picking up on a point you made there, and Carl might have a different view. It's quite a technical point about funerals. We do very naturally leave the front row for the immediate family because that's the etiquette of funerals.
Yeah.
And a few people have said to me, more than a few, several, God, do I have to sit on the front row? Like, I don't want to be there with everybody looking at me.
Absolutely.
We just do it.
I think if the family didn't sit on the front row, nobody would. Because we'd literally just have we'd
rows of people at the back.
Right at the back, and then people stood up behind that. It would just, I mean, we could try it. I mean, we'd always offer it. Families can sit wherever they wish.
Yeah.
But I think it's, you would, because you are at the you're meant to be at the front and to hear things. But
and just being the first person that walked behind Dan's coffin as well was just horrendous.
Yeah.
But it's something that I wanted to do because that, that's where I should be.
Yeah.
But it's God. That was the worst part,
I
think, of the whole thing. Because we spoke, didn't we, about,
absolutely,
do you want to follow Dan in? Or do you want everybody to be in first and then for Dan to come in? So I think it's good that you've got that option, because I didn't even realise that there was different...
Well, I mean, and that's the good thing with celebrants and funeral directors who know what they're doing, give you that option, because ultimately it's your decision on where you want to be. And traditionally, yes, everybody would just follow in behind. When we go to churches, and that's something Nicola's not keen on, that's fine.
Because I burn.
But going into church, everybody goes in and is seated, and the front pews are reserved, whereas the crematorium, traditionally and historically going back, everybody waits outside, so you would be first in. But now, the way the timings work at the crematoriums and the way that we plan services now, we give families the option of, well, how would you feel? Why don't we all just go in, everybody just sits down, and then, we bring the coffin in, or what do you want to do? And it just makes it that little bit easier. So it gives you the choice.
And I thought long and hard about that, and then ultimately I decided to do it the way we did, because I felt that would be less traumatic for me than sitting in there waiting and then turning around and watching. I just thought that would be worse than, walking in behind him.
And there is no right or wrong. You're absolutely right on that. It's that kind of, what do I feel I can cope with on the day? People say to me, well, what's the best option? It's like, there is no best.
No.
They're all up.
What do you recommend? What do you think?
It's the best of a bad bunch. In terms of, it's whatever you choose, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So I just went for the option which I thought would be less hard.
Yeah.
And I think it definitely was. And, the coffin that we chose for Dan actually was a really beautiful coffin, wasn't it? And, we had this whole thing about the coffin, because Dan was very tall. We've all said this. Dan was almost 6'5".
Dan was a funeral director's nightmare for size. He was so tall.
Yes, so tall. So because I just do not like the kind of traditional wooden coffins. I just think they're kind of depressing. I'm not sure you can have a coffin that's not depressing, but I just wanted something a bit different.
A little softer looking.
Softer looking, yes, a bit more friendly looking. And we looked at a couple of other options, didn't we?
Yeah.
But I couldn't have either of them because he was too tall.
He was too tall. We started with the wool.
Yeah, wool one.
One of the first options.
That would have been beautiful.
Yeah, and then there was a couple of different options in the wool, but it just didn't look right for it. And then we ended up with the wicker.
We had, the reason I went for it was willow, wasn't it?
Yeah, the willow coffin.
Same thing, yeah. The reason I went for that in the end was because the willow was from Somerset, and that's where Dan's mum lives. So I liked that connection. But also, it was really lovely because it just looked like a basket. And it was like, he's just in that basket. And that's nice, that he's just in that nice looking basket. And the flowers were just beautiful.
They were absolutely gorgeous.
I just decided to have one arrangement of flowers because he's a dude and he wouldn't have been that bothered about flowers. So we just went for this huge arrangement of all of the spring flowers on the top with some drumsticks in as well for Dan. And it was just beautiful. And I think following that in, rather than just this sombre looking dark wood coffin, it was a much better experience than it could have been, I think.
The Somerset Willow Coffin Company, who we got them from, they're a fantastic company, and they do all sorts of different designs, in sizing as well, which is great. And the wicker coffins and the willow, they are becoming a lot more popular. Just because they do look that little bit softer.
They do.
Your eyes are you do see the coffin.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got the flowers as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I didn't feel like I was kind of looking at a coffin. That probably sounds silly, doesn't it? Because it was. But I didn't feel like that's what I was looking at. I just felt like I was looking at Dan in a lovely basket, which was lovely. Yeah.
And people might be thinking, how on earth did you fit all of that content into 20 minutes at Darlington, which is the service time? We obviously didn't have 20 minutes. we didn't. We deliberately chose a double slot.
We did.
Because we knew we had a little bit of setup with Jay and with Evie coming to do their part. So we wanted to have some time ahead of the service starting just to make sure they were comfortable with what they were doing. We knew we wanted to serve the ginger shots. We knew we've got a lot to get in there.
Yeah.
So we booked that double slot, but I still don't think our service time was more than about 40 minutes.
About 40 minutes, I think.
Even all of that. And because we moved through things quite quickly, I don't think it felt like a long time with people sitting there.
No.
Like, when does this finish?
Nobody said that it felt like a long service. Yeah. But it was just brilliant having that double slot. And I would recommend that, really, because it didn't cost that much more.
No.
And it made such a lot of difference because you've not got that pressure of thinking, someone else is coming in. Because we did linger outside because it was a lovely day, wasn't it?
It was gorgeous.
It was a lovely sunny day. So we did all linger for a while outside, just chatting and things.
And it means at the very end of the service, if you wanted to just stay with Dan for a moment and just have
we did. Yeah,
there's no rush.
We did do that. I stayed behind and his two brothers and his mum. We just stayed inside with Dan for, I don't know, it probably was only about 10 or 15 minutes. But it was just nice to be there.
To be there.
Yeah.
So, gosh, wow. What a journey you've been on. Yeah. And what a journey you've yet to navigate. We know that. We know a funeral service is always that bridge between mourning and grieving. And as you say, that period of time is busy and focused. You've lots to prepare. But do you think the positivity you had coming out of Dan's service and knowing that you'd created something that was right for him has helped you start to navigate the next steps?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I'd come away from it with that kind of very dark, just everybody around me sobbing, and I suppose that image that you have in your head of what funerals are like. So had I come away from it feeling like that, I think you're right, probably would have felt different sort of moving forward after that. But because it was such a uplifting and it was such a bright day, I thought, people were saying to me, how are you going to be? Are you going to be all right? Are you going to be all right? And I think I was all right on the day.
Right.
I was all right.
I think everybody was. The whole family. The whole family were good.
And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that we had this lightness in there. We had humour. We had this uplifting music and music that made people smile. And the ginger shots were fun. And so I think everybody came away from it with a feeling of, we know that was a really sad event, but also it was really uplifting and a really nice way to start moving on after that. Yeah.
Well, and I think this really just encompasses the reason why we're doing this podcast, is because when we started, way back when we first started this podcast, it was to let people know what can be done at a funeral service.
Absolutely,
Years ago, and I keep reverting back, so 14 years ago when I first started, funerals were quite a drab and dreary process, and it was, a funeral director would come usually an elderly chap in a black suit, and it would just be all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And that still happens, of course. There is. It is a sad. It is sad. But nowadays we try to give families the option and make them aware that yes, it's a sad time, and yes, it will be difficult. There's no getting away from that. But there are so many different options available, other than just your standard.
Yes.
Service that one size doesn't fit all. Every service is different, and I know that. And I'm not just saying this because Nicola sat next to me, but I can guarantee that none of her services are the same.
No.
Every service is completely different, and there's no repetition of anything. Yes, we might have shots, but they're different shots. Everything is completely different, and that's what I love working with Nicola, because I know that the families who ultimately come to us and we look after them, I know that they're in safe hands. And all the celebrants we have in Darlington are very good.
Brilliant.
They are good. And it's just that whole point of letting families know that we go back to our first meeting.
Yeah.
What do we do? And we were there for so long.
Yeah.
And it's just so many different options available.
Yeah.
So.
And I think just ask the question, I suppose, as well. If you think, oh, I would like that, but you sat there thinking, oh, that wouldn't be possible, just ask the question. Because we certainly just threw everything out there.
And there's very little we can't do.
No.
There's a few regulations. We always come back to the sacrificing of goats. We can't do that. We shouldn't really serve alcohol, although sometimes we call it an energy drink.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Whiskey is an energy drink. But most things we can do. And I think, very kind in what you said, Carl, about kind of the services I give, but equally having a funeral director who would take on board what you said and have that creativity and that foresight to kind of say, we'll do whatever. And if you want quite a traditional service, there are still quite traditional funeral directors who will do that brilliantly.
I'm one of them.
I push you a little bit to be creative, but there are definitely those. Certainly, Carl, you give me the freedom to say, I'm thinking of some of the other families we've worked with where kind of work with people before they've passed away to plan the service, and you kind of just say, just run with it, whatever they want to do, just run with it, Nicola, and see what happens. When you get that match, it's great. So
it was lovely having you there, Carl, because I never dreaded having to come in to see you. I kind of look forward to it in a weird way, which is an odd thing to say, isn't it? I never would have expected for me to say I was looking forward to going to the funeral directors, but because it was such a lovely experience, and you were so friendly and we chatted and it was nice, it wasn't
and it is that you just see, gosh, this sounds like the Nicola and Carl Appreciation Society. I'm so sorry.
This is great.
It's like mutual appreciation, but there is just this real, families say it all the time, this real sense of calm with a lot of the funeral directors I work with, because that's the skill of it. But Carl, we hear it from your families all the time, just saying, you just put me at my ease. Because we're still seen as these authority figures, and it's like you walk in with your kind of spiky hair and your I'm the Mayor of Richmond persona, and it's all just like cool. It's all really cool with these shiny shoes, and
so it's reassuring. I think one of the things I said to you early on was, and this is probably a really weird thing to say, but I think I said something to you like, is Dan okay? And that's just, it's a weird thing to say, isn't it? But you said it's absolutely fine.
But Carl straight away knew what you meant, what you were asking him with that question.
And I knew he was all right and being looked after. And that just means everything.
And that's the trust that you inspire in families. Well, the moment you first go and take them and put into your care. Oh, it's quite emotional. Very emotional.
Made it through without blubbing all over you.
You've done fantastic. It's fantastic. But you are finding your feet a little bit, doing a little bit of work, a little bit, finding what new looks like for you.
Yeah, I'm back into work, and I've had to learn a whole new world, if you like, because Dan was the technical one behind what we did. He edited, he filmed, he did all of that. So I'm now in the process of sort of learning all of that and just working out what it is I can do by myself and what my way forward will be in terms of work. But I'm enjoying it, and I do feel him right there. He's right there, next to me the whole time.
one step at a time at your pace.
Absolutely, one step at a time. Yeah, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. Sometimes it is, because that's really what you sometimes have to do. And I've had to sort of not beat myself up on the days that have been bad, because you're going to have them, you know. And what I've just learned is that if I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to accept that that's a bad day.
Yeah,
you know,
and start again tomorrow.
And you'll get through that day, and tomorrow will be a different day, and inevitably could well be a better day. And that's usually what happens. Yeah, I just accept the bad days now. Yeah.
You find there's a lot of advice coming your way of what you should be doing.
I like to give advice. Yeah.
Do you ever ask for that?
No.
Well, that's the problem, whether you ask for it or not. It's there, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, it all comes from a caring point of view, doesn't it? And I think ultimately you've just got to, you know yourself better than anyone, don't you? And you've got to just take on all of that advice that's passed on to you, but then don't feel like you've got to do all those things that the people are telling you to do, or not do those things. Yeah. You know, a lot of people said to me, oh, it's very soon to be doing XYZ, or give yourself some more time and wait a bit longer. But I've actually felt better getting back into a world where Dan and I lived. You know, this world that we lived in with the, you know, the work that we did, and it just feels like I'm back to where we are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely does. Yeah.
And I'm, you know, so a sort of self-care thing for me has been getting back to work and just allowing myself to do that. You know, if I want to do work, then I'm going to do that, and that's what I've been doing. And some days I think, do you know what? I'm not today. I'm going to get myself out. I'm going to go for a really long walk. I'm going to put on a film. You know, so yeah, that's the biggest thing I think, is that I've learned to just trust myself in how I'm feeling, and know that whatever decisions I'm making, it's the right one. If it feels right for you, it's the right decision. Yeah.
We've been absolutely amazing from the first moment Carl and I met you, and we both feel incredibly honoured to have been on that journey with you. You've been such an inspiration.
I'm so glad to see you both again.
Well, we will come for coffee, Mark.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
I'll be coming in to see Carl.
Yeah.
Saying, can I have a cup of tea?
Yeah, drop the cakes in the
Can I test this cake on you, Carl? Yeah, feel free to do that anytime.
Of course.
So before we wrap up and go, if you had one piece of advice for anyone who found themselves sadly in your situation and unexpectedly faced with planning a funeral for a loved one, what would you say to them?
Wow, that's a big question, isn't it? I would probably say, I think probably what I'd said before, in that if there's things that you really want, then I think you should ask. And if that particular funeral director if you don't think that they're right for what you want, then don't be afraid to go somewhere else. And also, you know, I was always thinking, what would Dan want? And to try and sort of block out all of the noise that's probably coming into your ears from all of these places saying, oh, shall we invite so-and-so? Shall we do this? Shall we have the reception here? You know, block all of that out and stick to your guns. Which is what I did, and I think it turned out really lovely. And I kind of slightly regret not filming it. You know,
I can stand here and read the script out for you again and calm it down a ginger shop.
The only reason I said no to it is because I knew that Dan would not want that. He'd be mortified. He'd be like, "What?" You know. Yeah. But I think it would have been nice just to see Jay singing and things like that again. You know. But
let's do the Dan's benefit concert, then we can all get Jay singing again.
Jay singing all the
you get Evie playing again, you know. It's right on. So.
Good.
Yeah. Maybe that's the future.
Good idea.
Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Really heartfelt thank you. And thank you for listening, you guys. Thank you for sticking with us. Probably a longer episode than usual. But it was so worth listening to, so we didn't want to cut any of that short. If you've got any questions at all on anything you've heard Kay talk about, or you want any more information, about anything we've talked about on this week's episode, please get in touch. Drop us your questions and your we will bust those myths in future episodes, anything we're still not answering. But thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening, and we really hope you enjoyed and were inspired by this week's episode. Remember that you can get in touch with us anytime to ask a question, offer to be a guest, or to request that we bust a particular myth. You can get in touch via any of our social accounts over My Dead Poddy on Facebook, Insta, or TikTok. Or you can drop us an email at overmydeadpoddy@gmail.com. Just a reminder that whilst all of us work in the funeral industry, none of us are fully qualified grief counsellors. And therefore, if you've been affected by any of the issues that we've discussed today, we highly recommend that you seek out professional or medical support to help you with those conversations. Should you need any support, please do get in touch and we can hopefully signpost you in the right direction, but we can't offer those services ourselves. Thanks for listening, and we can't wait to bring you the next episode.